Welcome to day one of Natural Hair Fest 2021. I'm Salome Sallehy, your host and founder of Sugar Wax, and I'm so over COVID. This past year has turned our world upside down, and even though we seem to be headed in a healthy direction, there are some things that just may never go back. Even where hair is concerned. As much as I don't want to keep harping on what a huge upheaval this past year has been, it's important to just pause and take stock of how salon closings, lockdown, health alerts, and cultural movements of this past year has affected how we take care of ourselves and how we show up in the world. Luckily, today, and to kick off the summit, I'm chatting with a lady whose job is not only to dissect social, political, and global movements, but also to forecast trends even before we see them coming. My guest, Melissa Hago, is from Fashion Snoops, which is a trend forecasting agency. And in this segment, we talk about the impact of COVID on hair culture and some of the trends that we can expect to see more of in 2021. Stay tuned for our chat. Hey guys, welcome to Hairfest. I am here with Melissa Hago from Fashion Snoops, which is a trend forecasting agency. And we're going to be talking about all the hair trends and hopefully give you guys some insight into what to expect in the next year or so. And really just talking about some of the impact that 2020 has had on hair. 2020 was a big hair year, and I'm super excited to be talking to Melissa about her perspective on the impact of COVID-19. Hey, Melissa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Like you said, I feel like skincare and makeup have kind of taken over the beauty industry. So really excited that we're speaking to hair care and that there's almost so much innovation. I hope we have enough time for it.
I know, right? There's so much to cover. I want to start though with the COVID-19 pandemic, which had a significant impact on hair, because not only were we not going to salons, but it also had an impact on like how we manage our hair health or how we even think about our hair health. So what are some of the trends that you have seen born out of the coronavirus pandemic, and what do you see as having staying power going forward?
Yeah, definitely. So, we all know that during the pandemic, we saw a surge in DIY. Like everyone was kind of freaking out, not knowing what to do with their hair. That was kind of one of the biggest trends. And I believe going forward, there's kind of be like a hybrid of that. I know that, even though we're still not out of the woods, like the pandemic's kind of like been a wave of like uncertainty of like, when are we better? When are we not? So I think there's definitely going to be that hybrid of like everything done safely. I think protection is definitely was the key word in 2020. That's what everyone strived for, protection of your health, protection of your care, your hair care, of everything. So I do think that we're going to see a lot of these kind of like more protective elements, and a lot of it speaking to hair health. And I think that was another big part, was that people were starting to form these kind of rituals, so it was like, okay, I'm stressed, I'm stuck at home, what can I do? Is it a face care ritual? Is it a hair care ritual? I can't go to the salon to do my weekly or monthly. So we really saw lots of brands kind of catering to this. And I think it's something we're going to continue to see as, again, like I mentioned, the waves of Corona are kind of like uncertain. A great example is Sienna Naturals. They created this salon in a box. So it's like a great way of having your salon kind of quality products intended to help, again, restore the scalp health and repair anything from styling, all curated nicely in this like, beautiful box if you're not able to go to salon, or if people are scared to go to salon, because that's another thing that we're seeing from Corona, is that even with, limitations changing, people might not be ready to go into the salon. I think another area that was kind of stemmed from COVID was a lot of hair loss. We saw that because of stress, that people were, hair loss was becoming a really, really big problem. And I think, kind of ties in everything that I kind of spoke to before, where it's about protection, it's about hair health, and it's about, okay, how do I kind of help myself prevent this kind of problem? So definitely seeing a mix of topicals and ingestibles. And we know that, things like nutri-cosmetics have been trending for quite a while. Collagen had like its big moment, mushroom coffee, all of this stuff. So I love this like infusion of like all these other trends that we're seeing within the hair care. So definitely, again, seeing, both things that you can put on your hair, but then also things and formulations and ingredients, that nutrients that can really help with hair growth. And again, another box, I think these boxes are becoming, really popular because it's like a fun to receive, kind of like a mix mash of things that you need. So I know Dr. Jessica Berry launched her hair growth box. And that was a great box because, again, like I mentioned, it had herbs, antioxidants, it had a hair growth formula. It also had stress release teas. So it really spoke to that trend that we've also been seeing of like beauty from the inside out. And again, it's funny to see this because we're used to talking about these trends from like a skincare perspective of like, okay, what I put inside my body is going to show in my skin. But that's for all of your body. It's going to show in your hair and your luster and your shine. So it's really great to kind of see, again, some of these really cool like boxes and all of that. And, a lot of this is speaking to immunity, another big trend that we saw because of COVID, people wanting to boost their immunity, people wanting to just put on vitamins on their face or, have more ginger, elderberry. And again, seeing this also trickle down into hair care. So whether, hair vitamins and that have been around for quite some time, but seeing a lot more of them. This brand called Hairdamin, actually, they have this whole daily vitamins is, again, support hair growth, and it just has these really super power ingredients like biotin, zinc, vitamin A. So just, I think we're going to definitely see a lot of these like mergers of, topicals and ingestibles. And I mean, there's so much that has happened, because of COVID. I think another one is that people have really stopped to see what is important in my life. And that is not only in how you take care of yourself, but also in like, what do I have around me? Do I need all this clutter? Do I need all of these things? What are like my basic essentials? So because of this kind of new way of thinking, like, we like to call it like the Marie Kondo effect. We have seen a lot more multitasking products. So products that kind of like do it all, or products that, you might wash your hair, but as it, goes on your body, it's also like nourishing your body. So I think that's also we're going to see. And, these multitasking do all products not only speak to just having a product that does it all, but it also speaks to affordability. We know that, money is kind of a concern with everything happening. People, again, are so uncertain about what's going to happen. So it's just nice to kind of see these products that allow you to kind of, again, take care of your whole body and not just be so specific to one part of it. And then I think, I know like I mentioned, protection was really big. So definitely anything antimicrobial, definitely anything that's, speaking to bacteria and germs. I think that was one of the newest innovations that we saw maybe towards the end of, 2020, was that a lot of more brands were coming up with like, safe hair, or like I know BioSilk debuted their health and beauty antibacterial hair care, because again, this is what consumers were kind of like, these were keywords they were looking for, was like that protection, that, cleanliness. So these were kind of like, the staying power of the trends. I said I could do this forever.
I know you've touched on so much there. I want to kind of rewind back to hair loss for a second, because I remember kind of having a jaw-dropping moment when I saw Elisa Milano's post about having been infected with COVID-19 and having had a lot of hair loss as a result of the virus. And this virus has sort of manifested and impacted so many parts of our health. Do you think that that has been contributing to this almost like consciousness about hair health? Because I know we've talked about hairstyles for years, but hair health feels a little new to me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it kind of, goes again back to what I mentioned in the beginning, where it's like, we've almost been like, we've been so concerned with our skin because that's like what people see first. It's like, oh, my skincare, and like, skincare is just as important, but the same way that everything you eat and what you put in shows in your skin, it's the same with the hair. And I think, hair has almost been seen as like a side of like, oh, okay, I'll curl my hair or I'll do this and I'll just like look good and that's it. Or, I'll look good for a date and then whatever, if I have it in a ponytail, like it doesn't matter. And I think now, especially because we are living this kind of virtual life, we're all on Zoom, we're all in this like square as well. It's like, number one, it's like your hair is kind of like the main thing that's seen. And second, just like this realization that, yeah, like your health, your overall holistic health includes your hair. Like I mentioned, like the way you do your scalp, or the way that, your hair grows, or even like, its dullness, its shininess, like that all stems from like the way you take care of your health. And I think it's almost been so disassociated for so long, it was almost like, oh, okay, I could put hairspray, I could put all this stuff in my hair, like it doesn't matter. And I think now people are starting to realize like, no, like the same way that I take care of, my gut and my skin and everything else needs, like the hair needs that same kind of concern. And I think, that's what happens during, these kind of things. It's like, it shines light on things that we just like took for granted or just didn't pay attention to. And I think that's what COVID really did, is that people just realized, oh, I am losing my hair, or, oh, like, if I don't feel well, then my hair doesn't look well. And I think that's where the connection comes together.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time for hair and other things. But let's actually segue from that into us as consumers. We're just sort of getting a lot more comfortable with online shopping. Partly, like even the laggards, the people who were just, all about the retail experience and going into the store. Because of COVID, we've sort of been forced to shop online a little bit more. It's felt safer, and it's almost opened up a whole world of options. And, with the whole online living, there's technology has been changing how we're presenting ourselves. Like you talk about us being in the square, right? So I'm today wearing my like tamed hair, because I know that we have this call. And when you'd be working in an office, it wouldn't be like that, because your coworkers saw you all the time. And I don't know, I almost feel like we're more conscious of being, representing ourselves on Zoom life. But what are some of the other ways that technology is influencing the hair game? And how has that shifted? And what are we expecting to see more of in the future with the onlining of life and tech?
Yeah. So there's kind of several different parts that we're kind of being from online. I think the first one is definitely, like I mentioned in the beginning, a hybrid of like this protection. So I know Ted Gibson launched the world's first smart salon, and that spoke to like having no cash, no credit card, because we also know that, people are scared to touch things. People don't want to touch things. That was like another thing from like COVID. It's like, oh, do I need to touch cash? Do I need to touch this credit card? So I feel like that's definitely, and that's more like a bi-digital, physical and digital, more than just purely online. But I do think that the way we shop, kind of like how you mentioned, whether it be booked through an app or just products or scanning QR codes, will definitely is going to be a game changer going forward in retail in general. When it comes to technology, I think the biggest thing that brands we're seeing with consumer engagement, we've all had Instagram and TikTok, and it was like fun and playful, but those sources kind of change and shift into like becoming an actual tool. It's like, okay, people can't come into stores, people can't see brand new launches, so how do we get to them? And I think that's where we saw a huge surge in change, where like, oh, you can do a new product launch on Instagram, or you can engage with the consumer where they feel like they're actually getting to know the brand. And I think that's something that really stemmed also from COVID, was this like consumer engagement. Was that, before it was like, okay, I don't know who's creating it, while now with Instagram Live or TikTok and all that, like you really can have this like connection. And I think that's a really big part of this online, is that, we're craving this connection. It's like we are on our screens, we can only see a certain amount of people. So just being able to just know like, oh, this brand is here for me, or this brand is, showing me about their new products, or I get to be part of it. Because that's another thing, like maybe a product launch was about, just for press. And now it's like, oh, I can join a Instagram Live and learn about this like everyone else. So I do think, and so many platforms, like I know Pinterest added like a buy button, like Facebook had their Facebook shop. Like I mentioned, Instagram was a really big one into just having like these like virtual consultations. We saw Sephora partner with Instacart, you know, for delivery. So just, you know, definitely I feel like when it comes to change in all areas, like online definitely shifted. And again, we've been online for so long, like, you know, it's just kind of changed that whole way that we view how we buy. So I think the retail landscape definitely made a big shift. And how we view, you know, things as well, like telehealth was a big trend that we saw, you know, people kind of, again, being, you know, not wanting to go into the doctor's office. We saw this in the hair world as well. So much more like virtual consultations. I know Annabelle Kingsley and her team from Mayfair Clinic, they have this whole face-to-face appointments where, you know, where you actually face-to-face on Zoom, where you can just have your, you know, check your hair, your scalp health, you know, through phone consultation. So that was definitely another part of this online experience where it was like, oh, I can, you know, just through the phone. I don't have to physically be in the place. And I think AI, I mean, that's maybe a little bit more forward, but I know there's been a lot within, you know, augmented reality and AI, and whether it be through personalized hair care or like, you know, we're seeing a lot more core and air dryers. And again, I think this is the technology part of the AI. It's probably a bit more like forward, but I think when it comes to like this online living, then definitely, like I mentioned, speaking to like how we've engaged with consumers has changed.
That's awesome. Yeah. We have definitely seen a big difference with our customer base as well. A huge change and really wanting to connect and see and be a part of that. It's almost like the social isolation has almost, I don't want to say forced, but it's compelled us to want to connect more deeply with brands and communities. So speaking of communities, let's talk about hair care and how it's connected to social justice movements like BLM. I know that personally, I've definitely seen a lot of the underserved hair markets get more attention and get more of the spotlight. But from your perspective, what are some of the underserved markets that are now, like, how has that changed for them?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we kind of, when we're talking about trends and forecasting, we said we kind of lived through two pandemics. You know, there was the whole coronavirus, and then there was this whole racial injustice that came to life as well. And it's like, and even though it started in the US, it was felt globally because we are connected online. So we saw this, you know, trickle to other countries speaking to this. And I think, you know, there's, again, a lot of these questions just have so many like subcomponents to it. I feel like with, you know, BLM, it was a mixture of activism, but it was also a time to heal. So I think, you know, when it comes to activism, you know, we saw things like the Crown Act being passed, where it was like, you know, I think I just read, or I've read a few months ago, like how UPS just recently are allowing people to wear their natural hair. And it's one of those things where like, we're happy that this is happening, but we're also like now, like it's 2020, you know, or 2020.
Yeah, like what was happening before?
Yeah, like it's a new decade. Like, how are we just like letting this pass? So, but I think, you know, that's what something like BLM brought to light, was like, oh, there are a lot of things that are outdated, you know? So I think, you know, again, Crown Act is a really big one. I know California became the first state to just like outlaw discrimination based on natural hair. Yeah. And New York also and followed suit, you know, and then there were 6 other states that followed. So I do think there was like this part of like the activism of like, you know, speaking to natural hair care. And then when they speak to healing, you know, we just saw this like empathy revolution where it's like, again, and that's bringing back that wanting to connect and wanting to realize, okay, we're all humans. And I loved all these kind of books and movies that also came out specifically to hair, which again, I feel like it's something that hasn't really happened much. Like I know there's this book, Hair Love, by Matthew A. Cherry, and that was like, you know, he created that in a way to like boost pride, and like they had the audiobook that was narrated by Blue Ivy Carter, like, you know, just to have like a book for children just based on hair, like that's like a big movement. And then I know Good Hair by Charlotte Mensah, hopefully I said that right, And that was just reflecting on the importance of hair. So I think, and I love, that's why the name Crown Act, because hair is your crown, it's your way you represent yourself. It's what's on top of your head. So definitely seeing, a lot of these like kind of breakthroughs. I know one of my favorites that we featured, in 2020 as well was Pantene's Gold Series collection. So that was one that was not only created, for people of color, but it was actually, it was made for people of color, but also created by Black scientists who understand the unique needs. And I think that was a shift too, that for so long, it was almost like a disconnect of like, oh, okay, you're having someone create a product who doesn't even use the product, and it's like now seeing these like founders coming together, how many brands have we discovered because of all this, like amazing brands who are like, catering to, because they understand it. So I think that was another big movement, is that, just seeing a lot more like brands come from this as well. And even, speaking with people of color, like Latinx, I think that was like a really big one as well. It was another underserved community where, we didn't speak to like the diversity, and they, the Latinx have like a big moment as well of just having your platforms to like educate, to speak to the community, to bring everyone together. And I think that's what was great about, this movement and the impact that it, like I mentioned, it was a mix of that community and that empathy, but then that like activism of like, using your platform for good, like educating your consumers, like, having, again, bringing everyone together and their differences. And lots of, I don't even know which brands to mention because there's just so many great ones. But I think what was great about a lot of these brands is that they did speak to culture, and that was like a big part of this as well. It's like embracing, being in America, like we're just, everyone's based almost a mix of everything, so it's like, again, being Latin and having these like African descent and this European descent. So I think that was what was great about it too, is that, we learned about new ingredients, we learned about these new brands, but then we also learned like the backstory of like the culture and why they created something and who they created it. So, if it's like Bomba Curls is amazing, created by African Dominican hair lovers, so they spoke to like the curly hair. And again, there's so many. Ceremonia is another Latinx one using all Latin American source products. So I think we just had like a great amount of brands just kind of stem from this as well.
Melissa, I have to get all the links for everything that you're talking about, because our community is really about, shining a light on some of these emerging mission-driven brands. So we'll be sure to include some links in
there's almost like so many that I was like, I can't just pinpoint a few.
No, I know. If you have a bigger list, I'm happy to include that as well. And I remember pre-pandemic at the Oscars, the animated film Hair Love like just swept, and it was such a beautiful rendition of culture, and it was such a touching moment. But I feel like this movement was already sort of happening, and then COVID almost accelerated it, and then BLM just blew it out of the water. And it was like, okay, now's the time. We've been talking about this for so long. This is the time. And what you're saying about like hair and culture, I remember as a kid, like I have Middle Eastern roots, so I have like really, really curly hair. And at some point during this hair fest, I'm definitely going to wear my curls. But like just being able to have product options, like what I have available to me now is such a different experience than like back in the 80s when it was like for fine hair or like dry hair and that's it, so definitely hair is such an important part of our culture. And speaking of our culture and this consciousness, let's talk about clean and green, because obviously it is so near and dear to me and my brand. It's the ethos of sugar, but so many new emerging mission-driven brands are also weaving these values through their brand as well. Now, in terms of clean and green, what are you seeing that is specific to the hair space in terms of like ingredients, innovations? Like, feel free to get super granular. because this is where we're getting into like the heart of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think what's exciting is that we've seen this skincare effect and fusion in the makeup world, and for 2020 we definitely saw it in hair, and it was kind of the term was skinification of hair. So again, you know, this whole idea of like skincare like ingredients, skincare like formulas, but for your hair care. And I think what's really important about this trend is that it's supporting the total life cycle of your hair health. So again, it's not just part of your hair, it's really going from the scalp to the root to the tips, with again these skin care ingredients and really elevated formulas. And I know, you know, we're seeing brands like Scene, and they're like a luxury dermatologist design hair care. Sorry, I'm just turning this off. And you know what I spoke to earlier was like, it's not only good for your hair, but it's also good for your skin. And even their packaging is called skin caring. So again, even though it's a hair care product, you know, they do make sure that you're taking care of your skin. And I think, you know, we're seeing a lot more detoxifying. I think, you know, part of the green and clean movement as well is just kind of like detoxifying yourself, detoxifying your hair. So a lot more kind of like of these like antioxidant ingredients, you know, I mean, apple cider vinegar has been around forever. But you know, it's almost like, you know, trends always come back. So definitely seeing apple cider vinegar, charcoal, turmeric, green tea, like kind of ingredients that are just helping remove the buildup from the hair and just really speaking to detoxing like the hair and the scalp. And I think, you know, the microbiome has been something, again, that's been trending in the beauty world for so long, but it's been, again, so focused on like the gut and skincare. And we're really seeing that again for the hair. So just kind of balancing the scalp microbiome. I think this is going to be a really big trend within hair care, you know. And this is really, again, speaking to protection. So it's whether protection from like environmental damage or, you know, protection from, we know that indoor air is probably worse than outdoor air, and now we're indoors more than ever. So again, just seeing a lot more of these like really elevated, scientifically proved, you know, dermatologist tested restorative shampoos with probiotics and prebiotics, just to kind of really help, you know, balance the microbiome and help, you know, deeply nourish the hair and scalp.
Now, other than the obvious reason, which is, you know, like the health challenges of the virus, the coronavirus, what are some of the other contributing factors to why this natural hair care concept is resonating with consumers? What are some of the other factors that are driving this?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, just basically become a lifestyle, and it's almost like we've siloed things for so long. Like, you know, it's like, oh, okay, this is, you know, what I eat, this is what I put on my skin, this is what I put in my hair, and it's really just become this whole overall. And that's why wellness is having, you know, such a big moment, because it's like, oh, wellness encompasses everything. You know, it's, again, you know, what I drink and what I put in my hair. So I think, you know, again, for so long, the hair care was kind of siloed. It was like, okay, I'm going to eat green, I'm going to be vegan, but I'm going to like put on all this 80s like hairspray, you know, and like breathe in those chemicals. And I think, you know, the same things happen in the fragrance world, where it's almost like silo, like, okay, I'll do all these healthy stuff and then like spray this like chemical. And they're having their movement as well. I think it's become overall in all beauty areas, because it has become a lifestyle of like, okay, I want to live this way, not only for myself, but, you know, for the environment as well. I mean, you know, we can't have this conversation and not speak to sustainability. Like, sustainability, it's also a huge component and a big trend. And I think more people are not, you know, yes, we're definitely concerned with what we're putting on our hair, into our systems, but also what kind of impact is that having on the environment, you know? So it's like, if I'm putting on a spray and then it's not, I don't know, biodegradable, or it's not good for the outside, then that's definitely not going to be good for me. So I think that's definitely made a big shift in the way that consumers buying. Is just having, you know, more of this like environmental impact, and just, you know, again, we're seeing a lot of these movements where brands are like creating, you know, more sustainable packaging, or helping rainforests, or helping wildlife preservation. So it, again, it's like natural hair care, but it's become, you know, a big movement, because again, it's not only healing ourselves, but it's healing the environment as well.
And you touched on something earlier, which was, you know, we're looking more for like multifunctional I like to think of it as like minimalism, like we're trying to reduce like the Marie Kondo effect that you talked about. What are some of the, do you think that that's having an impact on our product choices, or even like, you know, how we style our hair, like the colors, like all of that? Like, I feel like we thought about hair really differently before the pandemic, where it was like, okay, I've got to go to the salon like every like 6 weeks or whatever. And then Corona took all of that away. So what are we doing less because we have, I don't know, like less resources available to us? Like, where's the minimalism coming from? Because I'm seeing it a lot as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a mix of like the figuring out what is essential. So we're seeing this like less but better. You know, it's like, okay, I might not need 20 shampoos, but I could have one that, you know, gives me everything that I need. Or, and it's all, so it's a mix of that, of like people just, you know, I think everyone saw that during COVID. People moved, people stopped and be like, what is essential in my life? What do I need? You know, what's important? So I think that was part of like the consumer shift of just realizing, okay, what are my essential products? That does speak to minimalism. And then I think, you know, a lot of people were kind of forced into this slow living. And I know like this whole trend of slow living has actually been around for like several years, but not everyone was in it. And Corona kind of forced everyone to be at home and, you know, just like take your time to do things and, you know, live this kind of like slower kind of life. So I think that is also kind of a merge of it as well, is that, you know, people are wanting only what they need, but then also taking this time to be like, okay, what's essential to me? You know, do I want to wear, like, do I want to use a plant-based hair dye because it's like non-toxic? And do I want this to be like a whole ritual for myself as well, for like my mind, body, soul kind of thing? So I think that's really where this is stemming from, is that, you know, just kind of like the slowing down of our, like, it's like Corona has like, it's been kind of a whirlwind of emotions, but it's also kind of allowed us to like slow down, reset. I think that's really important, and just really think about what's important, whether again it be in like the way we put on our hair care or just what our products look like.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. So I'm kind of rethinking it. I'm not sure if it's as much about minimalism as it is about essentialism. And that's definitely happened. And I think another effect has been just having more time and doing things a little bit more slowly. It's also making us more conscious. So if I'm putting the stuff in my hair and then I'm washing it into the drain, and where is that water going? And it's going right back into my water supply that I'm drinking. So like, I think it's raised a lot of awareness around things like that. So thank you for putting it that way. It's what's essential. I think that's been really the key here. I want to, obviously, I'm going to ask you about hair removal. So what are some of the trends that you have seen in the hair removal space? Because, you know, that's hair, and it's also, we've had some of the same challenges, even like with our line when we launched, which was just like at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of the people that we didn't consider to be a part of our target audience or our ideal users now had no other options. They couldn't go and get like wax every month. So it's really, really changed the game. So what are you seeing from your perspective on the hair removal side?
Yeah, I mean, the hair removal is also interesting because, you know, another trend is body inclusivity. And I think, you know, even speaking to like when we speak to hair, we're kind of are only speaking to the scalp, and there's hair everywhere. There's hair in other places. So I think we've definitely seen this like revamp of luxury hair removal. I know one of my favorite brands is Fur, and they've kind of changed the way that we view it as well. And you know, maybe it was the timing of it, because it was like when we're speaking to sexual wellness, and that was like a really big trend. But, you know, they really kind of like brought like ingrown hair, again, something no one talks about. Like, yeah, you need to talk about like waxing, but what about when your hair grows back and all of that? So I think they really revamped the way, you know, that we see hair removal with like, again, that skinification of the hair. So just like super luxurious, like good for you ingredients, their hair oil, their in-grow hair scrubs. It's almost like, again, everything that we've done in our face, we exfoliate, we tone, we moisturize. They created this whole system, for other parts of your body. So I think that's kind of the change as well. And it does speak to this ritual, is that it doesn't just have to be in like the top of your hair. It's like, we're seeing again these products that are catering to other parts and just being, not just like your maybe old school wax that was like bad for you and super hot and burned, and just seeing these like elevated products now.
Yeah, and maybe another thing that, well, I don't know if you've seen this, but I've definitely noticed that embracing hair, just like kind of going au naturel, like maybe not everywhere, but there's also been a little bit of like, well, I'm home, like, do I really need like my legs to be like, super smooth all year round? And I think people have started to really ask this question of, what do I need for me? Like, what's essential for me to feel comfortable in my own skin?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, because that is part of the self-care. It's like, okay, we're at home taking care of ourselves. So it's like, okay, there's one thing to show, like, okay, this is me shaking my legs. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Exactly. It's almost like allowed us some space to choose, which has been really cool. Now, we're going to be talking a lot about ingredients because I'm so passionate about ingredients and clean ingredients and all of that throughout the series. But what I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the trending hair care ingredients that are on your radar and we can expect to start seeing in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, so I know Ayurveda kind of had its trending moment as well, maybe about a year or two ago. Everyone, turmeric had its moment and everyone spoke to these ancient practices. And what I love is that it's kind of, coming back, like we're learning more from it, but also from a hair care perspective. So definitely seeing, Ayurveda inspired ingredients. So again, turmeric, ashwagandha, coconut oil, neem, all these really great healing, anti-inflammatory ingredients. We're seeing hair oiling come back too as like part of, the Ayurveda experience. So, we're having brands like Shaw's and Kicks, whose whole hair oil just kind of, again, promoted, inspired this like scalp health, hair strength, hair loss. So definitely loving the Ayurveda. And there's so many ingredients. I mean, I just kind of mentioned the ones I can pronounce, but there's so many great botanicals that are just like, again, speak to that wellness and ritual practices. So, and I think what's important in the ingredients that we're going to see is that they are going to speak to this whole wanting of like nutritious, of wanting, this consumer demand of like good for you kind of ingredients. And it's like, we know the food industry has kind of been something that we looked at for a long time in the beauty industry. It's like, oh, if what's good for me to eat, then I'm going to put it in my ingredients. And, we saw a lot of trends kind of trickle down. So I think we're going to continue to see this. And again, looking for these kind of nourishing. I know like honey is a big one. This brand Gisu, they're beautiful. I'll send you so everyone can check them out, how to spell it out in case I said it wrong. But
yeah, it's Gisu, and I actually just received my Gisu box, so I'm so excited to try their honey hair oil and hair mask.
I love it. And what I love about what they're doing is that, again, it kind of goes back to what we spoke to before, where it's like a whole holistic experience of like, okay, they're creating these honey infused hair oils enriched with this like beautiful honey, but it's coming from their bee garden, so it's like these ingredients are also talking to that, giving back to the environment, giving back to wildlife, giving back to the animals. And it's like, it's almost like you're cooking. It's like when you're cooking at home, it's like you're cooking your own meal. You know how much salt you put, what you're putting. It's the same with these like luxurious ingredients that are like, again, harvesting wildflowers or harvesting, the honey from their garden and sharing it with us. So I love them. I'm excited for you to try it, but love what they're doing. Flowers are definitely, we've seen this whole, also the same way I spoke to slow life, we saw this slow flower movement. And I think people are becoming more aware of like the power of flowers, the way they make you feel. Flower essences is a big movement as well. So I know we're seeing things like, hibiscus and marigold and chamomile kind of having. And I think it's also interesting when you talk about ingredients because it just goes hand in hand with what we're feeling. It's like, if you know about chamomile, you know that it's calming and it helps with sleep and it kind of relaxes you. And that's the state that people want to be in. You know, we want to be like relaxed and calm. So it's like, okay, then I'm going to like take care of my hair and put this relaxing ingredient, drink my chamomile tea. So it's always nice to see the correlation between ingredients.
That's amazing that you should mention that, because we incorporate, as Sugar Wax, we incorporate chamomile into our body powder. And it's such a beautiful ingredient. And I didn't realize that flowers were trending. I thought it was just a personal thing. We're also developing a face mask with rose petals. It's such a process, but it's so beautiful.
I do it with rose and like so. Yeah, it's just, I think what's interesting with flowers is that, you know, again, they seem so one-dimensional for so long, like, oh, flowers are pretty. But if you actually get to the root of like the flowers and what they provide and, you know, the way they make you feel, the smell of them, like, you know, even by seasonal, like, you know, what flowers grow in different areas, like the tropical flowers versus, you know, maybe like wildlife flowers, like there's just so much knowledge in the flowers and how they make you feel. So I think that's what the shift is, that it's no longer just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to make a lavender scent. You know, it's like, oh, no, I'm adding lavender because of its properties, because it's like calming. I think that's where the shift is coming, is that people are just, you know, being more knowledgeable and educated and wanting to learn more about these flowers. And yes, they're still beautiful and smell good as well, but it's like just getting to know more about them. So yes, flowers.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool, because, you know, it's something that I've always been really connected with, and seeing other brands and movements that are, you know, like these flowers that it's like a little miracle of nature with all these great properties, and, you know, understanding the science behind that and applying it in our daily lives. It's just kind of becoming the norm now, which is really cool.
Exactly. And I think it also speaks to, you know, we're seeing seasonal become a shift too, where people are learning, you know, the way that we're eating seasonal, we're also learning what grows seasonal. You know, how do you take care of your hair seasonally? Like, I'm going to take care of it different from summer to winter. And I think that's where a lot of these ingredients come in as well. It's like, okay, like when is a rose at its like highest point of growth? That's when I want to incorporate it into my routine, you know? So I think that's what's, you know, people are just becoming way more self-sufficient and just learning about, you know, the real cycle of nature and life, and just into putting that in tune with their rituals as well.
That's the perfect comment to end with. Any comments that you want to leave our audience with? Any last thoughts, resources, and where can they find you and, you know, stay up to date with the trends?
Yeah, so I mean, you can definitely follow us on Instagram at Fashion Snoops, and check out our website, fashionsnoops.com. I mean, like I said, I could keep going for hours about this, and I'm so excited about everything happening in hair care. So definitely reach out. You can reach out to me as well. My email is mhago at fashionsnoops.com with any questions, or if you need specific examples. I'm sure we'll share something as well with some more specific of the brands. But yeah, I mean, I can speak trends forever. So just reach out if you have any specific questions as well. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's been a pleasure, Melissa. And I'll be sure to include your email in your email address in the send out as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.